everyone, it's Holly, and today I wanted to talk about Romantasy because it has taken the world by storm and I have thoughts. So I have said here and there in videos over the last couple of years that Romantasy is this huge genre and I don't find myself gravitating towards a lot of popular Romantasy. The easiest way to say this is that I am not a Sarah J. Maas girly. I wish I was, because I feel like I'm constantly missing out on things, but she just does not fully work for me. So, it is what it is. And I feel like that carries through into a lot of other popular Romantasy that I've tried to read. But I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what it is, my perception, and talk about some Romantasy that I like, and maybe you will have some recommendations for me that might point me towards books I would also like, because I'm sure they exist. It's just a matter of finding them. First, we have to talk about what is Romantasy, what is fantasy romance. Are they the same thing? So are they the same thing? To me, yes. But I feel like it just depends on how you want to describe it. Like maybe fantasy romance, I would say is maybe slightly more fantasy than romance, but I feel like that is just semantics. So to me, Romantasy is where romance is a primary or main plot point in a larger fantasy story. So the romance is like at least 50% of the plot, which I'm gonna say, and then we're gonna talk about books I like, and they're not gonna be 50% of the plot, but I'll explain why I'm talking about them. Romantasy does not have to have steam, although I feel like maybe that is a differentiation between fantasy romance and Romantasy, is I feel like if you describe something as Romantasy, people are going to expect sexy at times, and like that's not required for any romance novel, so to me it's definitely not required, but it definitely does seem to be something that the, at least online public viewers are seeking, which is interesting. Let's talk about my struggles with Romantasy. And I do think that part of this is my own fault in not trying to seek out more and kind of just gravitating towards popular books, especially before I kind of knew. And it's hard because like when I show you my recommendations, a lot of these are very popular. So it's like, where is the line for me? I don't know. But anyways, I have noticed in Romantasy, there is a lot of the same. So I have done a video before talking about romance as a genre and how it is a very formulaic genre. That is, which like honestly, so are a lot of genres. But in that video, I specifically talked about, this was years ago, so I don't really remember what I talked about, but I know my general opinions on formulaic romances. And that is that there is one, comfort in the formula, and two, in that, like, one of the things I love about romance is that I know I'm gonna have a happily ever after at the end of the story or at the end of the series, but there is a journey to get there. So it doesn't matter that it's formulaic. But I do feel like we're going almost beyond formulaic, specifically in a lot of Romantasy, at least what I have seen. Where like we basically have like the same characters. We have the same like shadow daddy, hyper aggressive. Like I wouldn't even call him an alpha hole because I feel like that is offensive to alpha holes that came before them. They're just poorly written men. Like some are like decently well written, but it's just like, and it's starting to feel forced, at least in the ones that I've seen, where I don't like this. Also, going back to something I said before, I feel like there is a heavy focus on steam over plot. I don't have a problem with steam, with sex in my books, anything like that, but I want it to serve a purpose. Now, there are books where that's not the case, and the purpose of the book is to write steamy scenes, and that is fine, but to me, that's not what Romantasy is. And I fear that we are focusing so heavily on like the sex appeal and forgetting like what makes that in books good. Now, I could just be a judgy McJudgerson. So sorry, but that's how I feel. I also see a lot of what I would call improbably strong female characters, like the Throne of Glass model. If Selena slash whatever her name is, has no haters, I am dead. She, like, Feyre pisses me off too, do not get me wrong, but Throne of Glass is way worse. Now, people tell me, like, she gets better. I'm not gonna go back to that series. So I will watch books with Nichelle. I will eventually go back and watch all of her recap videos because she is a genius and an artist with them. And I don't have a problem with strong female characters. I have done videos before, I think, about how I wish we would talk more about not physically strong female characters and like how they are also great, and we could just have more diversity of female characters. We don't need to basically write female characters that are men in order to make them strong. But that's a conversation for another time. I also think in Romantasy there is a lot of writing to the market, and that one is hard because I understand why authors do it, and I would like to think that these authors are still writing the stories that they want to write, but my fear, that's not always what is happening. And I feel like, have I talked about this before? About like the TikTokification of books, where like we're basically writing to have like these like quotable moments for a video or like a post, and it's like, okay, you have that like witty line or that like steamy line, but like, is the rest of the book good? Like, so I will tell you, of the like popular ones I have read, like I did read Fourth Wing. I didn't hate Fourth Wing, but I didn't love it. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, but that was honestly the twist at the end really carrying it through. And then I just never wanted to finish. And I believe I've said this before, I'm so sad about that. One, because I do feel bad that I'm like missing out on this like cultural phenomenon. But also, I have read books by Rebecca Yarros before and enjoyed them. So like, it's sad to me that an author whose contemporary romance I have really enjoyed, I don't like her fantasy romance. And I do think for me, Fourth Wing is a huge example of my issue with this genre, where I feel like it's written to the market. It is, in my opinion, arguably rushed to the market, like poorly edited, and trying to basically recreate some popular character types and romantic relationships in other books. And I don't even I don't mean that in like a shady way to Rebecca. I think she does believe in the story, and I think she really cares about the story. But it does feel like, is his name Xaden, the male character, like when he calls her Violence, like I am one of those girls who loves a nickname. Like, I am that basic girl. I love a nickname, especially one that's like maybe a little mean, but like eventually you learn that it's not mean. I love that if it's done right. And this one just felt so forced. And I don't know if my issue with Fourth Wing is like, would it have been better if it was written in third person, dual POV, anything like that. I do see people saying theories about Fourth Wing, and if those theories are correct, I think that potentially the series has something there, but I don't know if I want to go back and go on that journey. And I also don't want like a big reveal in book 4 or something to justify poor writing before. I have read ACOTAR. I've read like all the Feyre and Rhys books. I have always considered, I've thought about reading Nesta's book because I am a Nesta fan. If Nesta has no fans, I am dead. Because I do really like her, but that is a big ass book. So I don't know. I did watch Carrie Kinread's recap of it though. So I know it happens, but I kind of do want to go on that journey with Nesta. So maybe someday I will do it. And I really liked ACOTAR, the first book, and the second book I liked a decent amount, but the third book it lost me. But it was better than Throne of Glass for me. But I do feel like a lot of Romantasy is trying to capture whatever magic Sarah had with Rhys and Feyre. And while I am not their biggest fan as a couple, I didn't hate them together. And I objectively, while I don't like Sarah's books as a general rule, I do think she's a good writer. And she obviously writes compelling stories. Like, that is clear. They just aren't for me. It's kind of like, I think of Sarah J. Maas, I put her into the same like box in my head that Shonda Rhimes is in, where I'm like, the concept for what she does like is compelling to me, and then when I actually like engage with it, I can't stand it. And there is no explanation for it. Like, I can't tell you, I mean, I don't like Selena, and like I think she's ridiculous, but like there really is no good reason for why it doesn't work for me. I could not explain it to you. And that is how I feel about Shonda Rhimes shows. It's like, I have tried so many of them, and objectively, I see what people like about them, but they don't work for me. Okay, so now let's talk about some Romantasy that does work for me. So first, I want to start with the ones that I would consider true Romantasy. I hope I have an Oscar. I have 4 books here. So the first one is Divine Rivals, this series by Rebecca Ross. Obsessed. I absolutely loved this. The like yearning, the passion, low fantasy, the like angst, the tension. Loved it. Love this romance. Is this romance a smidge saccharine? Yes. But when done well, I don't care. I think one of the things I really enjoyed about this story is the heroine. So I watched a video, I think it's a Mother Too Old now, from Crystal's Bookish Life, where she talked about fantasy romance with gentle heroines, which maybe that is part of what I am looking for. So I did make a list of the books that she recommended, and she did recommend this. And I do think, I can't remember her name now, I am horrible. Iris. I do think Iris is a gentle heroine, but she is like the perfect example of what I mean by we can have strong women without having them be like physically super strong and intense. And she does go through physical struggle in this series, but her mental strength in here is beautiful. And I do really like this romance. I feel like this was pitched as enemies to lovers. No. Also, can we stop with that in the Romantasy? First of all, a lot of people talk about enemies to lovers. Things aren't enemies to lovers. So, but anyways. Next, I haven't read this in a long time, but I was looking at my bookshelf and I said, that's right, that one. And that is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This is a short little girly. I have enjoyed everything I have read by Margaret Rogerson. Sorcery of Thorns is the first book I read by her. I did really enjoy that as well. I do have a book on my shelf from her that is unread that I need to get to. I don't think that one is going to be a romance though. And this one is a fairy story, and I am all over the place with fairies. I would say like 60-65% of the time, can't stand it. But the times I do like it, love it. And this is one of those times. And this character, I don't remember her name, Isabel. She does paintings, and she ends up doing a painting of this fairy prince and capturing something she shouldn't in that painting, and then she ends up being like taken away to like the fairy world with him. That's all I really remember about this, but I remember being like completely engrossed by this story and absolutely loving it. And again, I think this was probably a gentle heroine. We are learning things about myself. Next, I would say this author in general, but I think of everything I've read by her, I don't know. We'll see. So basically Bridget Kemmerer. I was about to say I think the Cursebreaker series, this first one being A Curse of Dark and Lonely, is more romancy. My favorite series by her is without a doubt the Defy the Night trilogy, but I think that is less romancy than this and Forging Silver into Stars. I've started, but I like quit because I had other things to read, her like new poly romance, which I'm very apprehensive about. Rarely do I find a poly romance I am happy with. So scared, but I trust in Bridget. But I think Forging Silver into Stars, honestly, is probably more romancy than these, but I haven't read this series like as recently. But I think Bridget does a really good job of writing characters who are raw, flawed, beautiful. The magic in here is like a little loosey-goosey, like it's not super pronounced, but it's definitely a fantasy world. This is a portal fantasy, but I feel like that's such a minor part of the story. I feel like you don't see a lot of portal fantasy anymore. I don't know. And Harper, the heroine in here, I think is a great example of a heroine I really, really like. I would not quite call her gentle. I think she is a little more like aggressive. She is limited in what she can do physically. I think she has cerebral palsy. Am I making that up? She definitely has a medical condition of some kind, and I think it inhibits her ability to walk a little bit. So like she does have some physical limitations, but she is very aggressive with like how she speaks to people and how she deals with situations around her. But I generally love, there has not been a romance that Bridget has written in any of her books that I have not adored, and they are not repetitive. Next is Stephanie Garber. Once Upon a Broken Heart is probably one of my favorite books. Stephanie's writing is beautiful to me. I don't often feel that way. Like I don't often look at reading or writing and be like, oh my God, I love it. But I did feel that way with this. And this one, the romance is maybe on the edge of like not being a primary plot. I don't know. It's kind of hard, but I would die for these characters. These two characters, oh my gosh, absolutely love them. And again, is her name Evangeline? I was like saying like Evelina in my head, and I was like, that's not right. Evangeline is a queen, a gentle heroine queen. But Jackson here, I think, is a very good example of kind of a cocky, like popular guy character that I really do like and connect with. And I really enjoy their romance, and I enjoy how they develop as individual people and as a couple. Anyways, so then I wanted to talk about 3 books. One, I just want to talk about it. So, whatever. That are not, I would not call these romantasies. The first one I'm going to say is right on the edge, but are more fantasy heavy, but have a type of romance and a type of story and writing that I like. So first is Dreams Lie Beneath by Rebecca Ross. I just have to talk about Rebecca Ross again. This book, writing, beautiful. There is a romance in here, and I do think it's a huge part of the plot, but I would say it's more like 30 to 40% of the plot, and so I don't know if I can call it a romantasy. Now this is YA, no steamy stuff, but it is a beautiful romance, and it's a beautiful story in general. And Rebecca Ross, kind of like Stephanie Garber, I feel like her writing just works for me. I do need to read more by her to know, like, is she a favorite author? Also, please read this. I was obsessed with this last year. And then the last 2 are definitively not fantasy romances. So first we have Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. The romance in this series is so small. It's not as small as the next one, but it is beautiful. And while I would like more romance because I am a romance girly, The way she writes the romance in here is probably perfect, especially for this being more fantasy. More importantly, Yelena, to me, is like an amazing heroine. And this is a heroine who is stronger. And like, to me, it's hard for me not to compare her to Selena. And maybe that's where I find Selena lacking. And that's not fair. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be comparing them. But I do. So, and I just am obsessed with Yelena. I think she is strong physically. She's strong mentally. She like struggles. She goes through so much in this world. And I am obsessed with her. And I do love this romance. It warms my soul. And then the last one, partially because like I kind of just want to talk about this. I think I do own this as an audiobook, so maybe I should read it because I've not read this in forever. And the romance in here is so minor, but I love it. And that is Crown Jewel by Sherwood Smith. So this is actually technically a duology. It was like originally published as 2 books, Crown Jewel and Court Jewel, but then it was published as like kind of one story just under Crown Jewel. And that is how I originally read it and how I have continued to read it when I have reread it. This again is, I have not read this in probably 10 years at least, if probably closer to 15. But the heroine in this book, I love her. And this book also has like a lot of what I like in my fantasy. Like there is court politics, there is some magic, there's like magic is kind of forbidden, and there's different things. And then the romance in here is, like I said, very, very minimal, but there's kind of like intrigue around the romance, and there's a lot of like, I don't know if yearning is the right word, but there is something in here where it is just so not explicit. And I don't mean like sexual, but I feel like there is something that certain writers have, and you just know that these characters, like you're not told in the writing, like, and she is attracted to him, but like you can just tell by like how each of them acts or how each of them talk. Like you see them like falling in love, and like you see their attraction for each other, and like how they grow to care about each other. And I think in a lot of ways we've lost that in a lot of media. And like, I mean, I don't watch a lot of like modern TV or movies or whatever, but when I do see stuff, it also feels more like in your face, like we're all idiots and we don't know how to like pick up on hints. Whereas like there is something to be said for me, the like spark, and like you see that moment, and like they don't feel that moment necessarily, but you do as like the reader or the watcher, and you're like, oh my gosh, these 2 characters are gonna fall in love with each other. And it gives you that like, maybe this is just me, but it gives me that like warm feeling in my belly, like when you have, like I compare a lot of times like romances I absolutely love, like they kind of like give me butterflies, like a childhood crush where you're like, oh my gosh. And like that is something I really enjoy in my books, and like this is the kind of thing with that. Plus I do really enjoy this book. Okay, this video was a lot longer than I planned on, but that is my thoughts on Romantasy, and some books I like, some things I don't like. So maybe you can offer some recommendations to me. Like I said, I did watch that video from Crystal. If I remember, I will try to link it below. And I am going to try to check out some of those books because I had not heard of a lot of them. So hopefully I will find some new things I really like. So if you have any recommendations, I would really appreciate it. Because like I said, I know these books have to be out there. It's just a matter of trying to find them. So yes, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.